Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Seduce Me. Thank you so much for liking the series. Thank you so much for enjoying my gameplay of the series. The series is a lot of fun for me to make. And let's get right into it. As I spoke aloud, a small red note caught my attention. Have a good day. Yours. My heart skipped a beat as I finished. I could tell it was from one of the boys. Maybe it was from him. I smiled before putting the note in my bag and eating up. The food was so delicious, I devoured every amazing bite. I looked at the time. Time to go. I quickly rushed out the door, checking myself in the passing mirror. I wasn't wanting to impress anyone, but I still needed to look decent. Before I could reach the handle of the door, however, someone took my hand. Huh? I turned to see Matthew, who was holding my hand back with a concerned frown on his face.
My name.
Your name?
My true name isn't Matthew. I want you to know my real name. If something were to happen.
His true name... Oh god, allergies. What did he mean? Why was he telling me this now? I remembered reading about a demon's name from the journal I read yesterday. If you know a demon's true name, you could summon them to you, no matter where you were or where they were. Matthew gently pulled me to him and leaned close to whisper in my ear.
My name is Zakeru.
His name is Zakeru. Zakeru. As he said his name, I could feel it lock into my memory. Something in my head would make sure I would never forget. Matthew pulled away and smiled at me, despite still carrying worrying in his eyes.
If you are in any danger, call my name. I promise that I'll come and help you.
I stared up at Matthew, unable to say anything. I could only nod in response. Matthew smiled before releasing my hand and heading into the dining room. Something told me that name would be used eventually. And right on cue, Naomi drove up to the gates with Suzu waving me down. I rushed out the door and we headed to school, talking about the homework and the coming day. We went into the school without a hitch. Our lockers were in the same parts of the hall, so we quickly unloaded what we needed and got our important books and necessities. First incident of the day. As I walked towards Suzu and Naomi, who were both waiting for me on the opposite side of the hall, something hooked my ankle and made me fall forward. Whoa, ow.
Hey, are you okay? Who did that?
Three of us looked back to see Lisetta and her gaggle of girls. Lisetta has a look of complete innocence while the girls around her giggled like no tomorrow.
Why, you little... Suzu, don't!
I felt a giant fire of anger burn in my stomach as I stared at Lisetta. Today was not the only time this has happened to me. However, it was now clear who was behind these incidents. Even if she was innocent, one of her goons did it. It was now obvious that Lisetta was the mastermind, just from the look on her face. She was no friend, nor would she ever be. I had to do something. I glared hard at Lisetta, feeling wisps of air and magic run through my skin and veins. However, I stopped at what I saw. Around Lisetta was a dark purple aura that seemed all too familiar. It was like a demon magic, but it seemed to be tamer. I slowly rose to my feet, collecting my belongings as I continued to stare at Lisetta. Something was off. As I continued to look at her, the aura grew, forming a shadow behind Lisetta with red eyes like shapes glowing from within its darkness.
Anderson, you alright?
I couldn't respond. I was entranced by a small hum in the air. It was distant, almost like an ethereal whisper you'd hear in horror games. But it was real. It sounded vague of a woman, humming a tune I didn't recognize.
Hey, are you okay?
Let's go. We'll be late for class. I suddenly felt the need to walk away, so I did. Naomi and Susie scrambled to catch up and follow at my knee-quickened pace.
Sheesh, Anderson. You look like you saw a ghost. Are you really okay? That fall was pretty bad. Think she saw underneath Lisette's cake face and saw the devil itself.
That's not funny. I actually did.
Oh, Suzu, hush!
No, something was wrong with Lisetta. It was more than just her being mean. Yeah, she's a bitch. There was something or someone watching over Lisetta. Or they were watching me behind Lisetta. What they were doing, I didn't know, but it was definitely demonic. Surprisingly, the rest of the school day went off without another incident. I went to my classes, had lunch, and was anxious to get home. As the bell rang for school to end, I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. Huh? A text from Dad. I'll be picking you up today. Make sure you're ready to go when I get there. That's kind of surprising. I quickly headed back to my locker and got my things before waiting for Naomi and Suzu.
Hey, are you ready to go?
Actually, my dad's picking me up.
Really? Okay, I guess that kind of makes sense.
We'll drive home together next time. Tell your dad that we've got you covered from now on.
Yeah, haha, alright.
Something didn't seem wrong.
Okay, don't ask about that. My dad texted me to say this. Why was he going to pick me up? Had I done something wrong? I didn't know. I waved goodbye to Naomi and Susie before heading off to the usual spot where my dad picks me up. I took the time to listen to my music while I waited. I needed to go to another Rise of the Phoenix concert. Eventually, I had played the entire album with no one showing up. What the... Hey, Dad's never late, especially not this late. I quickly dialed my dad's number again, but as soon as I pressed call, disconnected and I read a signal disconnection error message. What the... No signal error. How do I not have signal? I double-checked my phone and saw all 5 bars for signal. He must be in a dead zone. Before I could finish, a group of hands grabbed at my hands and feet and covered my mouth. I screamed into the hand over my mouth, struggling to pull away from the hands grabbing at my limbs. I felt disgusting and scary, feeling their hands on me. I needed it to stop.
Hey! Don't dirty up Malix's prey.
The voice, which sent a fearful shiver down my spine, whispered in my
You're
ear.
coming with me, Miss Anderson.
Dude, she's a fucking lesbian. I didn't fathom what was happening, but before I knew it, I was blindfolded and my limbs were quickly tied up. I felt myself being carried somewhere and was shoved into something that echoed the interior of a bus or a van. The doors closed and off I was, taken unsure of what was going on. All I knew was... I actually clicked. All I knew is that I was in trouble. All I saw was darkness. I felt numb as I was taken to a place I didn't know of. I couldn't even move my lips to scream. Sounds zipped past my ear, first of the interior of a car, then the outside, then an echoey space with whispers and crackle of people vibrating through it. However, the wrap around my eyes was eventually removed from my face. Damn, I really like that. Dude, I really like their artist skills. Like, the people who drew this game, I really fucking enjoy it because I just think it's really a cool type of artwork. Art. However, the wrap around my eyes was eventually removed from my face. And my bonds were cut. It took me a while for my eyes to adjust, but I found myself in a warehouse surrounded by devils, including Malix, who was smirking at me.
Nicely done! I'm sure those little shits will come running to find you when they realize you didn't return to your precious little mansion. They'll search everywhere for you.
Malix walked over and set the barrel of his gun against the skin between my eyes.
It'll be so funny when they find your dead body instead.
All of a sudden, a bright purple light engulfed the room, causing the devils around me to cover themselves. Gust of wind rushed past me, almost forcing me back. I covered my face with my arms, bracing myself and standing my ground. I tried to peek through my arms to see what was going on, but the light continued to shine brightly. As the gust slowly started to die, the light began to fade, revealing Matthew with his hands shoved in his pockets. And as he stood up, "Matthew?" Max slowly moved his arms from his face, taking in the sight of Matthew for...
Are you kidding me? You summoned the crybaby, right?
Malik's laugh was cut short, however, stopped by his gasp of pain and the thud of something embedded into the flesh. I couldn't believe it, but somehow a knife had been stabbed into Malix's shoulder, causing him to grip at it in pain.
What the hell? A knife?
Next time, I won't miss your throat.
Malik snarled before ripping the knife out of his shoulder and tossing it to the ground. He quickly raised his gun and shot at Matthew, resulting only to stare wide-eyed at his target. In midair, a knife and Malik's bullet clashed and both collided to the ground between the demon and the devil. Matthew chuckled and pulled a hand out of his pocket, revealing a handful of knives splayed out like a fan.
Too slow, Malix. Must suck being an old fart.
Malik instantly grew furious, charging at Matthew while shooting rounds at Matthew's shadow-covered face, Matthew followed suit, rushing backwards and shot his knives at each of Malix's shots. Each shot was stopped by a flying knife, making multiple clangs beat through the air. The remaining devils stared, trying to figure out what to do, help Malix or watch in silence. Eris, however, walked up beside me and crossed her arms as she watched with an amused smirk on her face. As Matthew backed into the far wall, he stood still, tossing knives upon knife at the incoming devil in his bullets.
Gotcha, you knife-throwing circus freak!
I saw a smirk grow on Matthew's face before he hopped off and flipped over Malix. The devil skipped to a stop, barely bumping against the brick wall. Matthew, however, didn't give Malix a chance to turn before shooting multiple knives into Malix's back.
Ah!
Bye-bye, Malix.
Matthew tossed a knife into the air and caught it before chuckling at it back at Malix's head. The knife sadly didn't get to meet its target as Malix ducked out of the way and turned to face Matthew with a face of pure rage.
You little shit! You think you're all that?
Honestly, I think he is all that because he's a fucking badass, dude. I told you guys I picked the right guy. Matthew brought another knife and tossed it up and down in his hand, unchanged in his cool yet almost playful expression.
Little known fact, I just like having fun.
That's a load of bull, Matthew. You won't even fight me in your demon form. Why? Are you afraid I'll kill you as the demon scum you really are?
Demon form, I didn't understand. However, Matthew broke my thoughts from trying to figure that out.
Hey, mind closing your eyes for me?
Huh?
What are you babbling about now?
Before I could answer, the tension suddenly went from warm to almost ice cold. Then at that moment, something in the air changed. The air instantly went from frantic to still in energy. What could have been described in ton as the color red quickly turned into a deadly mix of purple and blues as everything began to blend together all at once.
You asked for it, Malix. Now you're gonna get it.
Damn. My eyes never strayed from Matthew's face, however, even as it changed. His eyes began to glow a bright golden color as a dark blue circle formed underneath Matthew's bare feet. I stared at Matthew's skin began to morph and shift, changing from human to something else. For some reason, I was both scared and incredibly intrigued to see this new form. Before I was allowed to see Matthew's new form, however, a pair of hands quickly covered my eyes. Instinctively, I reached up and gripped them, trying to pull them off. A voice stopped.
It's me. Don't look.
I listened carefully and let the last two words linger in my mind. Don't look. Why? Why? What was being hidden from me? I wanted to know, but something told me to obey Demon's command. I suddenly heard gunshots making me tense up, but then I heard the sound of multiple stabs, followed by Malix's scream of pain. The stabbing and splashing sounds of blood and flesh grew more frantic and in number. How many knives was Matthew using? Maybe it was better that I wasn't able to see.
Matthew, enough!
Almost instantly after James's command, the sound stopped. The only thing anyone could hear then was the dripping of blood.
Guess I went a little overboard. Huh?
Malix is definitely dead, but you've lost your glamour spell.
Glamour spell? What did he mean? Why did Matthew sound so different? Why was this being hidden from me?
It's a spell that makes us look human.
I froze. Look human? They didn't have human forms after all? What did they look like?
Like demons.
As if Eric knew what Damon was talking about, Eric cleared his throat and spoke up, followed by the sounds of cork popping out of a bottle.
Well, not for much longer, Princess. Here, Matthew.
Oh, hey, you found my potion. Thanks.
I could hear the small... Hold on. Damn it, guys, stop texting me. God, you're blowing up my phone. I could hear the small clinking of glass being passed before hearing Matthew guzzle down a liquid of some sort. The feel of the air around me gently began to warm back up, insinuating that everything had been returned to normal. Finally, Damien moved his hands from my eyes, allowing me to see around me once again. The devils included Eris had fled. On top of Malix's body was a dirty sheet that was quickly turning red from blood. The wall behind it was painted red in blood, still dripping onto the floor and onto the blanket. The blanket looked like it was covering a mound of dirt instead of a body. The boys, however, had gathered around me, all of them, including Matthew, looking like nothing had happened. What just... I tried to speak up, but everything zipped around in my head at the whole event, and I felt like speaking wasn't possible.
Let's just get you home, miss. There's nothing more to see here.
Jesus Christ. I could only nod. What had happened boggled my mind to the point of disbelief. I was second-guessing everything, lost in the sea of what and how and when. As we walked out of the warehouse, I looked to Matthew for something form of sign that I wasn't dreaming. Matthew rubbed the back of his neck, walking forward as if to get away from what had happened. It was over. Malix was gone, and the boys were finally safe. A wave of relief ran through my body at the thought of never having to deal with that group again. At the same time, a ping of realization hit the back of my mind. The boys were only going to stay until Malix was defeated. That was our deal. As we approached home, I could feel something heavy weigh down my heart. It was late, but the boys led me inside and turned on the lights in the lobby.
Finally, we can relax.
It will be good to have some rest without devils breathing down our necks.
I'm just tired. Can I hit the hay early?
I think some sleep would be good for all of us.
I looked at Damien, knowing he could read my mind, and frowned. I didn't want to know about my thoughts on the situation. Yeah, bed sounds good. I wanted to just end tonight. Too much had happened, and I felt dizzy just trying to figure it out. However, Damien spoke up, stopping all of us from moving.
Should we be gone in the morning?
There became still with tensions. The realization of the situation hit the boys like a wave, forcing them to turn to me in curiosity. They had remembered their deal and were now awaiting for me to decide the fate. I gulped face to face with the reality of the situation. The boys were leaving it up to me. They looked like they were willing to accept whatever I had demanded. It was only fair, though, after all that had happened. I looked at Matthew, feeling my heart flutter in my chest. I didn't want him to leave, but would he ask to stay? I hoped that he would say no and ask me to stay longer. As if he knew I wanted, Matthew moved and stepped to me, taking my hands in his. He gently smiled at me and spoke.
I want you to know that you've been really generous to us, and I want to thank you for letting us stay here. But is it okay if we stay a little longer?
My heart skipped while a large red blush ran across my cheeks. The boys stared at Matthew wide-eyed, but didn't dare to speak out. Matthew stepped back to give me space, returning to where he was. I moved my gaze across each boy, trying to make a decision. If they left in the morning, I would never see them again, and my life could return to normal. If I did decide to let them go, that would have been for the best. No goodbyes, no delays. But did I want to? They had done so much for me in such a small amount of time. Let them stay. I wanted them to stay. I wanted him to stay. I merely smiled, staring at the man I had come to have feelings for before speaking at last. I would love it if you all could stay. Yeah, look at all those fucking smiles. Oh my god, dude, that is so creepy. I'm sorry for the artist who made that face, but you could have done a lot better for Matthew. Oh my god. The boys cheered tiredly, but nonetheless, enthusiastically. God, why can I not speak? I giggled at the sight. It was cute to see everyone so excited, despite the tiredness that ran equally through our bodies. Today was a rough day. My home is your home, as long as you can still help with the chores. The boys nodded in unison, agreeing to the terms that I had set for them. Despite the good situation, I felt myself slowly slipping into unconsciousness. Yeah, you damn straight, bitch. However, James quickly clapped his hands together, getting everyone's attention and waking me up, making sure I didn't pass out on the floor.
All right, everyone. We're all very tired, so let's head to bed, shall we?
Oh! Yeah, sleep is actually a thing. Right.
We've had a very long day, but it will be good to just relax tonight and tomorrow.
Sleep sounds really good right now.
Yeah, man.
I watched a happy smile grow onto Matthew's lips. He shared my excitement, knowing that we would be together longer. Who knew how long we would stay together? All I cared about was that I would be with him. The others quickly left to finally rest, leaving me and Matthew alone at once. My heart fluttered a bit as Matthew practically skipped closer to me in excitement. It was really cute to see him that way, so I didn't do anything but smile.
Thank you so much for letting us stay.
You're welcome, Matthew. I'm happy to have you stay here. I watched his smile brighten a bit before he cleared his throat and chuckled a bit. I didn't know if it was tiredness or my growing attachment to him, but I felt myself sway a bit on my feet. However, Matthew's face made it clear that he wanted to say something else, making me forget that my bed was also on me.
Listen, about what happened at the warehouse.
No, it's fine. You did what you had to do. I understand. I had accepted everything that had happened and knew that Matthew had to do what he had to do. He was real and he was someone I didn't want to be without, even if that meant nodding against my curiosity. Besides, I was too tired to explore that memory further. Matthew nodded before holding out a hand to me.
Come on then. Let's get you to bed.
I nodded before Matthew gently lifted me up into his arms like a bride and carried me to my room. I didn't want to leave his arms, leaning my head against Matthew's chest, but eventually I was slowly lowered to my bed and covered with my bed covers. It was still in my school clothes, but I was too tired to strip or care. I looked to Matthew, fighting a yawn from my escaping me as he gently ran a hand over my hair.
Have a good night, okay? I'll make breakfast again in the morning.
I nodded with a tired smile before watching him slowly stand and leave my room, closing the door. A wave of happiness washed over me as I laid in bed. I made a good choice. Sure, it would be hard, but I could tell that I would be able to manage it. Help around the house, and being with a man whom I was slowly starting to fall for would be worth it. I slowly felt my exhaustion take over. I let sleep consume me as I drifted into the darkness in my mind. Everything was peaceful. I was happy. Wait, that's it? Yo! That was a nice ending. I like that. I mean, I'd like to see more. Alright. Now that these credits are rolling... Wait, what the fuck?
You are an interesting creature.
What the fuck is this creepy-ass bitch? I opened my eyes to see a woman staring down at me with a very sly smirk on her face. I opened my mouth to scream in fright, but a hand quickly covered my mouth.
No screaming now. Too early, silly girl.
I could only stare up at the woman above me. I still felt weak, not having the strength to move and fight her off. What was going on, and why was she here?
Why do the boys like you? You're unique, yes, but that can't be all that you have going for you.
What the fuck? Rage began to consume my core again. This woman, whoever she was making me mad. She must have known as she let another smirk grow on.
Ooh, you're feisty. That could be why.
Fuck you, bitch. Before I could bite her hand in anger, she moved her hand from my lips, standing up and staring down at me from her place next to my bed. I quickly sat up and glared daggers at the intruder. She was very beautiful, but I felt more anger than amazement. Who the hell are you, and why are you in my room? The woman began to laugh, making the rage inside me increase. I wanted to punch her, but I waited for her answer.
How silly of me. I forgot that we demons are not well known of in your world. You can call me Diana, little human.
The fuck is Diana? Diana, demon. You're a demon?
I am. But I'm much more than just an average demon.
Oh my god, it's gonna be like fucking Malix's mother or some bullshit. What do you mean?
Silly girl. I'm a succubus.
Really? Really? I thought this was over. I thought the game was over. Okay, we're gonna keep continuing. I stared at Diana in shock. A succubus. First incubi, now a succubus? Great. I had now met both genders of sex demons. Oh yeah, there's an incubus and a succubus. Okay. Now, guys, I'm gonna let this save for the next episode, and I will see you guys in the next video, and goodbye.